adapt and change with the times. The changes can be hard, but there are ways to stay mentally and physically healthy during this time. And it is also important to stay connected with family and friends to lift others up and boost your own mood. But it's not all doom and gloom. The government has drawn up a plan to pull the country out of the woods, and one of such is to evacuate stranded nationals back home. This is one of our focal points in today's conversation on hashtag Ask the Info Ministry. We are live on GBC News Nationwide, on GTV and on Garden City in Kumasi. We're also streaming on Facebook at Ghana Broadcasting Corporation and Ministry of Information pages, also online at www.gbcghanaonline.com. Joseph and Tim Dakon will help us translate this program into sign language. And today, taking the hot seat to answer more of your questions, our esteemed guest, the Honorable Minister for Information, Mr. Kojo Opon Kroma, and also Member of Parliament for Ofwase Ayobi constituency. Welcome back.
Thelma, thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you. We missed you last week.
We missed you as well, but Honorable Pius was here and did a very good job.
He sure did.
Yeah.
He sure did. You're a key part of this discussion, so don't forget to send us your comments and questions. When it is time, use the hashtag Ask the Info Ministry across social media, and we will find your questions and comments and ask them on your behalf. You also have the opportunity to send WhatsApp messages to number 055-744-6249, 055-744-6249. Send us your questions and comments, and we'll get straight into the conversation of today. Honorable Minister, the case count, as we always start this program with, keeps going up. Very concerning is the fact that between last week and now, we've had over 10 more deaths. Why are we where we are now?
We're where we are today as a result of a combination of factors. One is the fact that we continue to have a very strong testing framework, which combines what the world is doing, known as the general surveillance, with what we are especially doing here in Ghana, known as the enhanced contact tracing or the enhanced surveillance. If you look at the numbers that are in as at the 6th of June 2020, about 9,910 positive cases. 5,763 of them are from the enhanced contact tracing or the enhanced surveillance, and 3,997 are from the general surveillance. And the first thing you learn from this is that because of Ghana's enhanced surveillance, we are finding close to about 6,000 out of our 9,000 cases. And I keep making the point that if we were not adopting this approach, we will be saying that Ghana's case count is somewhere around, give or take, about 4,000. So one of the first reasons for which we are having to observe such numbers is because we are employing a different approach, which allows us to find positive cases early, isolate, treat, and ensure that they don't also continue spread. The second is that, admittedly, we are also observing that there are a lot of people who are not observing the personal preventive etiquette that we've been preaching. Social distancing, to some extent, is being observed in some areas, but the wearing of masks, for example, is not being observed as much as we would like it. There's a fair amount of observation, but you also find a fair or a high level of non-compliance, and therefore you find that people will have the propensity to be exposed, which contributes to the numbers that we are having. But I think one of the things that we always draw people's attention to is to observe what we call the dynamics of the virus in Ghana, i.e. how it is playing out in Ghana. And one of the key pointers that you look to when you are looking for that is what we call the mortality rate, or how many persons, unfortunately, are losing their lives as a result of this. Currently, it's about 48 persons. So 48 expressed as a percentage of 9,910, while we continue to say that even one life lost is a very big blow to a family. 48 as a percentage of 9,910 gives us a fair understanding of how the dynamic of the virus here in Ghana is. We have 4 persons who are on ventilator currently, 20 persons who are in severe condition, and the rest, apart from the 3,645 who have recovered, the rest are responding well to treatment, either in treatment facilities or at home. So those are the latest numbers as of the 6th of June. that I have with me to share with your audience.
Are there any new hotspots? Because when we started this hotspot conversation, it was Tema and it was Obuasi later on, and then it came to Western region. Are there any new hotspots based on what we know from last week and today?
No, I don't have the data breakdown into where you may describe as hotspots per se. What we do have is a number of places in which you may have some new incidents of cases, and I will do well to find that and share that with your audiences before we wrap up our discussion. If you look at, for example, Ayawasu East is still recording cases, Koliklote is still recording cases, Ladadeko Topon, Lankwantanang, Tema, Weja, Ayawasu West, Gan North, Tema West, Ayawasu North, Ashaman, Ayawasu Central. They are all still recording cases, but Ayawasu East is the one that's recorded the most number of cases. Western region is also recorded, I think, another 145 cases.
In Western region alone?
Yes, between the last update, which was the 5th of June, and the 6th of June, 145 cases, mostly coming from Ahanta West, Ifia, Kwesimintim, Pristia, Honi Valley, Shama, Sekendita, Takwa, and Insuaim. So the two regions that have been recording cases since the 5th and 6th of June, or between the 5th and 6th of, only two regions, Greater Accra and Western. All of the other regions are not recording cases anymore. Bono East, Savannah, Bono, Western, North, Oti, Northeast, etc., etc.
So what becomes the next step if the number of positive cases are still going up, and then, as you've said, compliance is not as effective as it should be to the protocol?
We have to step up on compliance some more. Local authorities have to take a bit more leadership and help us to step up with compliance some more. Managers of a lot of the facilities that are being opened up as we ease some of the restrictions also have to take responsibility and help us step up on the compliance some more. But like we have always said, you've got to look at all the data together and come to a certain decision. The data together tells us that we can ease some of the restrictions. We are not excited about how some persons are still not necessarily complying, but it's a mix of education and local authorities helping us to do some enforcement that will help cure that.
And we see enforcement in terms of during the time of the restriction on movement, we saw some people still going out into town without justifiable cause, and the police and other security agencies having to enforce certain measures. Is it something similar that you are doing to?
Yeah, we continue to encourage the local authorities. The Ministry of Local Government continues to be a forefront agency in helping to encourage the local authorities to ensure that we deliver some more compliance at the local level using some of these methods that were tried in Accra earlier.
Now, New Zealand gave us some good news this week, and they are telling us that the country is virus-free. They do not have any active cases, and in the past 17 days, as at the last time we checked, they had not recorded any new cases at all. What lessons are we learning from New Zealand, and how soon do we expect such news in Ghana? 9,000, almost 10,000 cases now.
It's difficult to predict when we can expect such news in Ghana. It's difficult to predict whether the situation will stay same in New Zealand for the foreseeable future. It's exciting news that we're hearing from New Zealand. One of the things that we think has contributed to that is discipline and compliance. People have been disciplined in respecting the preventive etiquette as have been rolled out in these restrictions, and the local authorities there have also been helpful in ensuring compliance. The combined effect of these two will ensure that you don't have communal spread continuing, and that you are able to first of all cease spread and then offer treatment to those who are positive until such a time that you do not have any active cases. It appears to be a very simple model, but it requires a lot of discipline from individuals and compliance from local authorities, and that is what we'll continue to encourage as should take place within our jurisdiction as well.
Right. Now, since this program started for the past about 4 weeks, one of the key issues is when are our borders going to open? The answer has always been we are still keeping the borders firmly closed.
Yeah.
On Friday, the Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration Minister addressed Parliament with a plan to evacuate stranded Ghanaians back home. And because of that plan, we have quite a number of questions coming in, and some of the voice notes that we got for you will be playing them very, very shortly. Now, what is the plan precisely? We understand that some people are already back home.
Yes.
So what's the plan?
So let's go back to the very beginning. A lot of people were asking, what's the plan? How do we come home? And we said the first rule is that the borders are closed to protect the population. The second is that we still acknowledge that there are Ghanaians out there, some of whom may want to come home. And so we are trying to gather data and use that data to inform the process or to inform the decision-making process. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs sent out circular to all the missions. They engaged the registered Ghanaians who were there, who have provided them with information which we are using for this purpose. I can tell you that over 1,000 Ghanaians out there have given us information and are expressing interest in coming back. What we have done is to group them into about 4 different categories. Category 1 are the deportees, persons who have been scheduled for removal from the various countries in which they are for various reasons, including the fact that they may not have a legal basis to stay there. For this category of persons, we are looking to assist them come back home. We contain them, we ensure that they don't have any viral loads present in their body systems, and then based on what immigration says after the investigations, then they can be handled on a case-by-case basis. The second level is what we call the distressed or the destitute. There's a group of Ghanaians who have traveled to various countries before the pandemic, but whose circumstances have been worsened due to the crisis and the consequent travel bans that have come about in the management. So you found that we have a lot of people who are sleeping rough out there, sometimes on the streets, in front of embassies out there. They are the distressed or the destitute who are not in a position to even provide for themselves in many of these places. The third group, which we call those that government will fund their evacuation, are government officials who traveled on official business, government-sponsored students who have completed their courses of study, as well as government-sponsored students who are yet to complete their course of study but who are compelled to leave their places of residence, like some of our compatriots in parts of Asia, etc. They are those that government will have to now look to funding their evacuation.
So does that presuppose that the deportees and the distressed or destitute are not being funded by government?
So, for example, for the deportees, you find the host country funding the deportation, and then we will have to receive them, like we've done with, I think, about the 230 Kuwaitis or so. The distressed or the destitute, we often will have to be the ones to fund that one, but we put them in a different category because they are distressed, destitute, living rough out there on the streets, and we have to pay a particular kind of attention to them. But we have those who are not necessarily distressed and destitute, who were out there sometimes with, or very often with, government permission. It means that there's a responsibility on the state to ensure that we bring them back. And then you have the final category of persons, those who have the ability to pay. These are private individuals, business or corporate sponsored employees, privately sponsored students on exchange programs, government sponsored students who are yet to complete their courses, but who without any compelling reason say they just want to come back home. For these persons, they will have to fund their own evacuations, and then we'll provide them with the necessary assistance. It also covers foreign sponsored evacuations, which only require government to provide travel documentation and assistance for. So what we've done is to group them into these 4 categories. Now, back home, what you need to examine, and what we've decided, is that we are the best persons to test and contain. Because after having, for example, looking at the Kuwaiti example, having observed some of the testing protocols elsewhere, we have the view that we are the best persons to test and contain. But we don't necessarily have unlimited space to hold everybody if everybody comes home at the same time. And so the evacuation is going to be in phases.
Okay.
So for those who can afford, they will be put in a particular cohort. They will be required to pay for their evacuation, and then when they are brought back home, we test and we contain. For those that we have to bring back, we will bring back, looking at the facilities that are available, and then we'll test and we'll contain. So for example, already, apart from the 230 that came in, on the 4th of June, 7 persons came in from Nigeria. On the 5th of June, 15 from Mauritania. On, I think, the 6th of June, 5 other persons, I think, came in from Turkey. From the US, we've already had about 35 persons coming. From Burkina Faso, about 14 persons on the 6th, and today is the 9th, am I correct?
Yes.
From Mauritania, we're expecting about 4 persons who are coming. Remember, the first cohort that came in, the 230, they have already done their 2 weeks. And so for those who were tested positive, they've been moved. For those who were negative subsequently, arrangements are being made to have them exit the facility so that you have space to accommodate someone. That's why you're having to face this one. We expect close to about 500 people to come from London by the middle of this month. And then from New York, about 300 people will come, I think, about a week later. And before the end of the month, another 300 from Washington, D.C. These are the cohorts that we're already planning for, even including where they will be when they come. We do acknowledge that there are more. In fact, currently, we are in consultation with the Ghana mission in Beijing and one airline so that we can evacuate about 670 stranded Ghanaians in China. Similarly, in Abu Dhabi, we're having discussions with the UAE authorities to bring home about some 500 who are stranded in that country. So you're going to have to do them in phases. In one of the African countries, 141 Ghanaian students, I think that will be from Benin or so, they'll be coming by road. And again, we're making arrangements, or we have made arrangements where exactly they will be there, expected, I think, to head towards Ghana from the 13th of June.
Right.
So the Foreign Affairs Ministry and the National Security Ministry have been working to engage and have made plans for these cohorts. I still get calls from persons who say, I've heard that, let's say, London, this number by 17th, but I don't know whether or not I am on that list. I think one of the things we need to encourage is for people to be calm and to be patient. It's going to be a process. Not everybody will get to go at the same time.
But how do you even get your name on the list in the first place?
So people, because of the categories in which they provided information, they have been categorized as such. And now that this work has been done, they're going to reach out to them and let them know that you are on this particular cohort. But I think what we need to do is to get everybody to understand that calm is the most important thing. We're going to go through phases. The fact that you've heard that 230 came from Kuwait doesn't mean that's the end. As I'm mentioning to you, there are different cohorts. So our colleagues need to be calm. It was 0 at first. We have started it gradually and in phases. And the missions will be engaging with all of these persons to give them feedback on when you are due to leave the jurisdiction.
So it would mean then, for example, that if you are in Washington, D.C. and you decide to come back home, under any of the 4 categories that you've mentioned, you needed to get in touch with the Ghana mission there and then get your name on the list.
Absolutely.
And they will get back to you on what flight to get on.
Absolutely.
So it is not for you to go and book a flight with, say, airline A, B, or C.
Because generally those airlines are not even flying to Ghana. Our borders remain closed. These are special permit flights that are being granted. So I think the view is that if you go and buy your own ticket on your own,
it would be cheaper.
Well,
was one argument.
Well, you'll probably be on a frolic of your own because the borders are closed now. We are giving special permits to special flights. So in Ghana, for example, we give permits to flights to evacuate foreign nationals out of the country. We are also we have started giving permits to flights for Ghanaians or those who have permits to be in Ghana to be brought in so that we can contain them. And we cannot have different aircrafts coming in on their own at their own time when you are not prepared to receive and to contain them. So it is to enable us find a balance of allowing people back home but protecting the population. That's why we need to deal with special flights now that we can receive people and contain them at this point in time. So like we keep saying, when you travel outside of the jurisdiction, register with the mission out there so that even in times like this they can contact you and you can also give them feedback, and then as they make their arrangements they can have you in.
So what if you traveled out of the country to see your family in, say, Canada or anywhere in the world, and now you just want to come back? You're not under any, maybe you even have dual citizenship, but you just want to come back home, maybe see the family, and now this has happened. Are you going to be put further down the list because you're not a deportee, a distressed, destitute, or a government-funded evacuee? What happens to those categories?
You will by all means fall within one of these 4 categories. You'll probably be somebody who can fund it yourself, or a destitute, or a deportee, or somebody who went out on an official assignment and has to be assisted to come back, and you will fall in one of these 4 categories. But what you need to do is to engage with the mission and provide them with your details.
And not go ahead and book your own flight.
That is not my understanding for you to go ahead and book your own flight, but to engage with the mission, provide them with the details, and then they will direct you on what to do. So that if they give permits to a particular aircraft, like in the case of China, if we're dealing with a particular Ethiopian Airlines flight to do the evacuation for us, and the safety protocols that we require to be on that flight, and the permits are granted for that flight, you can get on that flight. If you go do something else, it may be difficult to assist you at that point in time.
So is it true that yesterday, that's Monday, June 8th, a flight came in from China with about 30 plus Ghanaians?
I don't have a brief on that as I said before you. I can check and let you know.
Right, because we understand that the flight that brought them was nearly empty and there were seats with people back in China willing to pay.
Well, like I said, I don't have a brief on that. I can check and get back to you on it.
And because we're still on the topic of the evacuation or the planned evacuation of Ghanaians, we have a few questions on that subject on our voice notes and videos package, and so let's just take those and then we'll finish that part of it and move on to the feedback from the restrictions on religious activities and then education. So let's have the comments and questions from our voice notes and videos compilation.
My name is Beland Elomtete. I want to find out from the minister that did the president consult the clergy and GHANAIANS before easing the restriction of the students going back to school, that's the final years, and the church also resuming? Did he consult the clergy and the GHANAIANS before making that decision?
Thank you, Mr. Minister. My name is Esiedwa Mankwa, Reno, United States. Please, I want to know which actual date are the borders of the country going to be opened. Secondly, what are the measures being put in place to check the spread of the COVID-19 when the borders are being opened, most especially at our airports? Thank you very much.
Good day to the Honorable Minister and the staff at GBC. I am Gregory Atsindambila, a student in China, Shaanxi province, and I wanted to know how we will go about the emergency evacuation, because apparently I'm a member of NUCS and I'm an executive, and I just got information that people were airlifted to Ghana just this week, and also they had applied for the evacuation last week and last 2 months, but I had no idea. We had no idea of it, so I want to know because I want to come home.
Are working and can make a 3 square meal a day, want to come home, who are stranded, and those who came for business and they are caught up here, who still want to come home, who are still stranded, want to come home, and those who are students who want to come and see parents, who want to see their family home. It's private. We are just calling to our governments, that's the Republic of Ghana, the President, the Commander-in-Chief, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to just help us so that we will have a successful evacuation as soon as possible.
Thank you all so much for sending in those questions and comments. The Honorable Minister for Information, Mr. Kojo Nkrumah, is here on hashtag Ask the Info Ministry to answer your questions. Today we are focusing primarily on the plan to evacuate stranded Ghanaians abroad, and we'll get into other conversations later. But this one seems to be very, very dear to the hearts of many, Honorable Minister. And so the question is, when exactly, and the person is asking for a date, will the borders be opened, and what measures are in place to check at the airport?
I really wish I could help our brother out by giving a definite date, but I'm not able to do that because, first of all, a decision has not been made on that. A decision has not been made on that because we are continuing to observe and study the events as they unfold under the eased restrictions. Remember, we're at a point where borders were totally closed, schools were shut, religious services shut, etc. We have eased a little bit, and I think what the President mentioned in his address, that we need a period to observe the effect of the easing, the first part of the easing that we have done, which will now inform us, will give us the learnings of what more to do. So we would have to tarry a little while and draw the lessons from the easing and how it's being complied with and whether it's having adverse effects or it's being contained well. And then that will inform a decision on when we can actually open the borders, which decision would then be communicated. There was a question earlier about did the president consult the clergy and schools. I'm a bit taken aback because we've, time and time again made the point that the president was going through a consultation process, and we've invited the country to a conversation on what we call living with the virus or the new normal. And we had lots of feedback and lots of ideas. I suspect he's asking because there are some who have said that they are not comfortable with the guidelines that came along with the easing. The thing about consultation, and let's not kid ourselves, is that consultation does not mean that with the greatest of respect you will be dictating to the person who is consulting you. You'll be giving that person perspectives, opinions and ideas. That person will also be picking perspectives, opinions and ideas from other quarters and other persons. It is when he or she has put all of that together that he will come to a certain position, which may not reflect 100% what you wanted, maybe 20% of what you wanted,
but with the expectation that some of what you are concerned about has been taken on board.
So a lot of extensive consultation was done, and in the end, after listening to the clergy and the school management teams and the health teams and the security teams and the public health experts, the epidemiologists, etc., the view was that this is how we should ease. I can tell you that there's been broad consultation. I sat in several of the consultation sessions myself. There are those who have received it well. There are those who say the guidelines are still a bit too tough, and so they want to wait it out a bit more. I think both positions are fair, and we don't have to begrudge somebody who says, I don't want to go to church because I think it's too much, or I don't want to open up my church under these guidelines because I still think it's too restrictive. I don't think we should begrudge them. At least for those who are comfortable with the level of easing that we have put up, they are doing their best to comply. I have not seen a report so far that says that anybody has gone in breach of them. I haven't seen any such report.
Right. We'll come to that conversation, but let's just wrap up quickly on this issue of the emergency evacuation, if that is indeed happening in China. One of the students has reached out to us, and people want to come home from China.
Yes, and as I mentioned, they'll be in one of the 4 categories. Like I said, I will check this information that you are making available to me, that there are reports of one cohort already coming, but there was a lot more space on the aircraft. Why is that so? I will check, and then we'll be in a position to provide a cogent answer to that. I don't want to speculate on that.
Okay, so still on the borders, Queenie Elia is asking on Facebook, when are those stranded in Brazil coming home? I suppose that would also be factored into the plan?
Yes.
Because you've mentioned New York and London, so I'm sure that's where the question is coming from.
Yes, which is why I mentioned that the fact that a particular city or something has not been mentioned at this point doesn't mean this is the end. We need to tarry, because they are going through a process and they're going to do it by cohort. So let's observe.
So is someone, Madi Hamza is asking on Facebook, can arrangements be made for international students in Nigeria who are willing to pay for their trip?
I think so. I think if I've heard the education ministry quite clearly, but the final
I think
year
it extends to all international students.
Well, schools are closed except for final year students who are writing their exams. For that cohort, my understanding is that the education ministry has indicated that they can engage with the various school authorities and some special arrangements can be made for them. So for final year international students, I think that arrangement can be made through the specific institutions and in collaboration with the ministry responsible for education.
Kojobotre is asking us on Facebook, ask the Honorable Minister, I'm a Ghanaian student in UK. I need to come home to collect data for my dissertation. I submitted my particulars to the High Commission UK to be considered as evacuee. However, I requested for updates via email from the High Commission this afternoon. I was told they could only compile names of stranded Ghanaians. What should I do now? Kojobotre Ochre is asking on Facebook.
Kojo's case does not sound like it immediately fits into any of the categories. He wants to come for a transaction. He wants to come to gather data.
He's writing his dissertation.
Yes, I understand. And it's a particular transaction. It's not as though he's distressed or he is sent out there on a state assignment and has to be brought back home, or any of those other categories.
But his academic calendar is likely to be disrupted.
I totally understand that. But as we have mentioned, we are not in ordinary times. And priority would have to be given, for example, to those who are sleeping rough on the streets of London, or those who are deportees, or those who have been sent there on state assignment, or those who can afford to pay for their own return. And then you can deal with all of the other categories of persons who want to come for one transaction or the other. I do understand and feel his pain, but under the circumstances, we have to deal with some categories first.
Josie Bro is asking, please, which flights are doing this evacuation? Because they say they aren't moving.
Well, like I said, these are specially organized flights. So if you deal with the embassy is working with airlines that have been can I use the word accredited or designated for this purpose? Because there's some safety requirement that goes with these flights that are still coming in from places where you may still have active COVID cases, but which we're allowing in because they are bringing people back home. There are some standards that we believe must be met. So there are specific, may I say, airlines or charter flights they are dealing with. So if you ask any other airline, they'll probably say our flights to Ghana have been suspended. But that is why we say deal with the mission, and they will help put you in a particular category and assist you.
Right, here's another one. Kofi Guy on Facebook is saying, when are they going to open borders? Because we are stranded here in Ghana. So this is a category of people who are already in the country, but they cannot go out because the borders remain closed. What are the options for them?
There are people in Ghana who are still going out. These are people who either have passports of other countries or have resident permits of other countries. If you fall into either of those categories, what you do is that you contact the missions of those countries as though you were their citizen or resident who is here. And they will organize, and they will organize an evacuation flight to those countries. Some of those flights may be flights that they are paying for, some may be flights that they ask you to pay for based on your condition or your situation. And then they will request for a permit, and we will give that particular permit. Quite recently, we have done a few of those permits to evacuate people to Germany and to other parts of the world. So if you are stranded in Ghana, and you are a citizen or you are a resident in a particular country, contact your embassy. They will put a cohort together and apply for a permit, get an aircraft, and will permit it to ferry you away.
Joshua Kwesi Crunchy Taylor is asking, why should we pay for the cost of quarantining? Why should we pay? He did not specify which categories he directly falls under, but he's asking, why should we pay the cost of quarantine?
As I've mentioned, there are those who do not fall into a category that requires payment.
But even those who do, who determines who falls in what category? Do you have to submit any document to prove that you belong to category A, B, or C?
You will have to. If you told us that you are a student on a Government of Ghana scholarship in a particular country, and under the circumstances, international students have to go home, etc., you would have to back it up with some sort of data. If you told us that you were a government official or you were sent on a government assignment or a state assignment, you would have to back it up with some proof. If you are a deportee, the state that seeks to deport you will back it up with some proof. If you don't fit into these categories and you are somebody who went on private business, you are an individual, corporate sponsored employee, and you are determined to be somebody who is able to ferry your own costs, then the determination is that you would have to pay for the cost of bringing you back and the cost of ensuring that you are contained for that period.
Let me take a few of the messages on our WhatsApp number, and this one says, hello Honorable Minister, what is government doing about Ghanaian students in Saudi Arabia? The Saudi government has provided an aircraft, and what we need is landing permits from Ghana government. This is Sheikh Abdul Hakim from Saudi Arabia sending that message.
I think I mentioned what's happening at Abu Dhabi. 675 stranded Ghanaians in China. Abu Dhabi has initiated discussions with us. The UAE authorities are talking to us. Over 500 of our nationals are stranded in that country, and we're working out those details so that we can bring them back home.
Here's another one. Hashtag Ask the Info Ministry. There was a memo indicating that Ghanaians abroad who are willing to come back to the country should be prepared to pay for their own accommodations for the mandatory 14 days quarantine. How is this going to be possible, considering most of these people haven't worked to earn anything for about 3 months now? And the second question, is it that COVID-19 funds are finished and government needs more funding again? Thank you, Nansia Mohammed from Tumu Upper West.
So very quickly, as I mentioned, there are those who don't fit into a payment category because they are either deportees or destitutes or people who are out there on official assignment. Apart from those, there are also those who went on a private assignment and want to be given permission to come back home. What the state can do is to facilitate or to give permit for you to come back home.
Right.
But that person would have to pay for their cost of coming back home. We are also in an instance where when you come back home, you don't just walk into your private home straight away. We will have to continue because we want to protect the 30 million people out there. The cost of that containment is what you would have to bear, so that those who we are clear cannot afford because of their circumstances are the ones that the state will have to take care of.
On this matter, in the case of a country like England or in the UK, there's an allowance for people to self-isolate or quarantine in their own homes, so that the costs, which in Ghana's case could be in the thousands, could just be taken away if the person can possibly fund their own tickets back home. Is that option on the table?
When you say allowance, you mean the state will pay you to stay in your own home?
No, the state will not pay you, but then because they have homes that are appropriate for that purpose, they are allowed to maybe move from the airport to their homes and quarantine or self-isolate there, rather than being put in a hotel and being asked to pay for it. Because there are some we've received, they said, look, we have houses in Ghana that are almost empty. We could do this in our own homes. Is that on the table?
Understandable, Thelma, and different people would make different demands and different requests at this point in time. But when you're managing a complex situation like this, you have to lay down some basic guidelines that ensure that the entire population is protected. At this point in time, this is the framework that has been agreed to be used to operationalize this. Some of the countries that we are referring to are countries that have not even believed in some of the systems that we've been using for a very long time. The consequence is the number of active cases they have, the number of deaths, the number of hospitalizations they have had. If you take the UK, they were not even doing self-isolation for 14 days until quite recently. Even mandatory quarantine, they are not doing mandatory quarantine. They're asking you to go and self-isolate and self-quarantine, which has a higher level of risk or threshold. We have considered all of those, and we're of the view that this is the best way, this is the best middle ground to accommodate it. And we ask our compatriots to comply with it so that we protect the Ghanaian population.
Right, here's another one. Please, I would like to ask the minister what the government is doing about some of us that are Ghanaians but working and resident in Europe. I came to Ghana in March with my family and I'm unable to go back to Europe to work. Can the government please arrange for us to at least fly back to Europe on the flight coming to Ghana through the evacuation? Those of us on working permit can fly to Europe, but the problem is the Ghana borders are closed and we are losing our jobs.
As I've mentioned, if you do have a permit in those countries, you just have to contact their embassies and they can facilitate it. Just like how if you have a Ghana permit, you can, if you do indicate you're fit into any of these categories, you can indicate, and if the assessment is that you fit into it, you can be assisted.
So many more questions are coming in just based on this matter of the planned evacuation alone. It's given us very little time to come
it's
to
such a hot potato for many people.
Because people want to be free to move around, and that is not possible.
And it's understandable.
So here's another question. It says, good evening, madam. Please ask the Minister of Information that when will they post the university graduate teachers who have written and passed their licential exams? Well, this is not an evacuation.
Apart from that, I honestly don't have a brief on that one. As I said before, we may have to check up for a brief on that one.
Well, here's another question. My name is Daniel Anson Dankwa. I'm unemployed, but I've been teaching for the most part of my working life under the partial reopening of schools for final year students of basic, senior high. Can I get employment, please? Is the government employing, Honorable Minister?
We have not had need to employ more teachers because the free senior high school program allowed us to recruit a lot of teachers to run the double track system. And now that only final year students are going to school, it means you actually have a lot more teachers than students that you require. So we have not had need to recruit teachers currently. If there's a later assessment down the line that says that for some reason some other categories of teachers are required, we'll be apprised of that. But as at now, we have not had reason to recruit teachers for this program that we are running.
Right, here's another one. He says, well, I would like to keep the comment as sanitized as possible, so I'll just go to the bit where he says, we're in Saudi Arabia very stranded, and then our names were taken over 2 months ago and nothing has happened. Others that started late are going to Ghana, and Pakistanis in Saudi Arabia get 7 flights a day. When can we also come back home? I'm trying to keep the comments very sanitized.
No, I mean, it's fine, and it's even understandable that people are frustrated and sometimes may want to lash out at us. You know, the job that we do, it's some of the pain that comes with it. Sometimes when people are frustrated, you are the one that will take it out on you. So it's very understandable. But the point is this: the risk needs to be properly assessed. A determination needs to be made how you can be brought in and contained within that period. And I do know that the teams at National Security and at Health are doing their best around the clock to ensure that as many, even today, at least one flight is going to land with some Ghanaians, but as many as can be brought in and contained safely without harming the total population back home are brought in. If Pakistan, for the size of the country, for the size of infrastructure they have, can afford to do 7 evacuation flights a day, that's good news for them. under our circumstances, this is what we're able to do. We'll continue to do our best to improve the situation, but you need to bear with us. It is a difficult exercise.
Ernest Ananse is joining us on Facebook on the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. He said they should get some hostels which are not being used now, so people don't have to pay huge amounts for quarantine. Is that an option?
It is an option. They are not necessarily going for 5-star hotels for everybody who is coming in, and I do know that there are some less expensive options that are included in this package. And before you are brought in, it is explained to you exactly where you are going to go, and therefore the cost implications if you are within the category of persons who will be paying for yourself. So yeah.
Ernest is asking us on Facebook, ask the minister please to give us updates on COVID-19 recoveries region by region. Is that information available right now?
I don't have that here. I just have the bulk figure, 3,645. I don't have the regional outbreak unless I maybe go and mine the data sets a little bit.
Okay.
So if I do get them, I'll do share it with you before we wrap up our show.
Okay, so that question will be answered subsequently. And one of the other key things is the issue of education. And I've seen all your questions on education. I'll come to them in a bit. Ken Kuz is joining us. He says that hotel prices are very expensive for mandatory quarantine. 2-star hotels charging 550 Ghana cedis. That's the price of a 5-star hotel normally. So I guess my question, Honorable Minister, would be, do you think the prices are a bit steep on the average?
I know that the teams that are handling it are doing their best to ensure that not everybody pays the same price for every kind of facility. For those who have to pay, my understanding, the brief I have is that there's a clear conversation that when you come in, we're sending you to this hotel, and these are the costs associated with it, and you're expected to agree to it before you make that move. Because mind you, not every hotel or hostel is willing and interested in accommodating persons for mandatory quarantine. So for those who are doing it, who have also assessed be it their level of risk or what it means for their business, they come with a particular charge. For those who are required to pay, and the brief I have is that it's supposed to be explained to you and you understand that you agree before that move is made. And there are options, on that scale. So, it's about choosing which of the levels
fits your pocket.
Yes, fits your pocket.
Viewers, you can join this conversation by calling in. The number is 0260969160, 0260969160. The Honorable Minister for Information, Mr. Kojo Ponkroma, is here to answer your questions on hashtag Ask the Info Ministry. Now, Honorable Minister, I wanted to get your opinions on what kind of feedback you've got from the easing of restrictions for religious organizations. Did you go to church perhaps on Sunday?
No, I didn't go to church on Sunday. I stuck at home with a normal virtual service from the International Central Gospel Church, Reverend Dr. Mensa Otero.
But what kind of feedback are you getting from the organizations that have opened? Are they complying? I
think that, so far I haven't received a report that says that anybody has not complied. Because for the teams that were asked to do the monitoring and the surveillance, I haven't cited a report that says that X or Y or Z was not complying. But I think that the reaction has been mixed. There have been church groups and mosques that have said, we're fine, we can comply with it, we're living with it. This is good enough for us. And then there are those who say, we'd rather want to tarry a while and maybe hope for some more easing down the line. What's important is that we are not forcing everybody into the system. We have eased up just a little bit to allow those who are minded to return to church or to mosque to do so under a set of preventive guidelines. And we're going to also observe during that period and see if it's having any negative effect or not. But most importantly, it's how these churches and mosques administer the 100 cap and the preventive protocol to the satisfaction of the government that will determine how we move forward and how much more easing we are able to do. So we mix reactions and we continue to observe.
We'll get back to the issue of the religious organizations again very shortly. Jonathan is joining us from Tema. Hello, Jonathan. Thanks for calling into hashtag Ask the Info Ministry.
Yeah, hello.
Thank you for joining us. What's your question or comment?
Yeah, my quick question is, I am based in London. I've got a resident permit as Kojo Ponkroma State. I cannot hear you.
Jonathan, Please turn down the volume on your set so that we can hear you better. Then you can hear us.
Oh, yeah, right. That's fine. I'm on, if the phone is on speaker. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly. Please go ahead.
Yeah, right. What I was saying is that I'm a UK resident. I came here to bury my father and I got stranded, yeah? The UK government organized 5 flights, yeah? And they have told us specifically that they are no longer repatriating anyone. And that our only way out is that we need to speak to the, foreign ministry to get us out. I am listening to the honorable gentleman and he's saying that we should go back to the UK High Commission. The UK High Commission is also saying they are no longer getting us out. They are done. We need someone to help us out. Look, I've got my family, I've got my kids, 18 months old, I'm losing my job, and we are desperate. We are very, very desperate. I'm very emotional right now.
Your point is well made.
To get back home.
Your point is well made, Jonathan.
Please,
Honourable Minister, can you address that matter directly?
And, if he's still on the line, I would like to find out, is he a UK citizen or he's a
He said
resident?
he's resident. So
which means he's a Ghanaian, but he has resident permit in the UK.
It's a possibility.
Yes. So
but it could also mean if he has been in touch with the Home Office or the government representatives here, it could mean that he's also of dual nationality.
It is possible.
If he can get in touch with the embassy or the High Commission, then he's considered a citizen of that country as well.
Yes, it is possible. But what you must understand is that the government of Ghana is not in the business of ferrying people outside the country. The borders are closed to protect the people of Ghana.
So, but is there a collaboration between the government and, say, the UK government?
There is. That collaboration is to the extent that persons who are UK citizens and persons who are resident in the UK inform the UK High Commission that we are citizens and we want to be evacuated, or we are residents and we want to join the flight, maybe at our own expense, etc. And the UK government requests for permit to evacuate them, and we've granted a lot of those permits.
But he says 5 flights have gone out, and they are saying they are no longer repatriating.
It is totally in consonance with what I'm saying, that we have granted those permits as have been requested by the UK government. At this point in time, the borders are closed until a decision is made to allow, for example, empty flights to come in and take people out. This is the status quo. The embassies are the ones that are requesting.
So he needs to go back to his embassy.
He needs to speak to the embassy. I do not know they are a sovereign country. I don't know their internal mechanism so that they have more flights down the line, etc. But at this point in time, our borders are closed. We are hoping, we're expecting to get to a point where we can allow flights to go out of the jurisdiction.
Is that likely to be anytime soon?
I can't put a date to it, but it is one of the things that we are looking to on the horizon, to allow flights to come in and take people out who may want to go because they have visas, etc., resident permits, etc. We haven't gotten there yet.
Right.
This is where we are now. So until then, he would have to speak to them. But I totally understand his desperation. I feel his pain, but it's a very difficult thing that we're trying to manage now. He's got to also bear with us.
Jonathan, I hope that you get in touch with your High Commission. Another caller has joined us from Afienya. Godfred, thank you for joining us. What's your comment or question?
Yeah, good evening. I just joined. I just came to watch you, and then I want to ask: they that went like those are US, they went for holidays, and they want to come down. That's a request. Is there any plan? What are the plans for them? And is there anything that they have to do? Who should they contact? So I just joined, so I didn't know if you've addressed that issue before.
Right.
So I'm just asking.
Right.
Thank you very much.
If you can just take note of that. I think there's another caller on the line.
Very well.
Hello, welcome to #AskTheInfoMinistry. Okay, we've lost him. So holiday makers and plans for them as well.
They will fit within the category of those who can pay for their evacuation back to Ghana. It's the same rule that first of all, when you travel out, we ask you to register with the mission, so that even in times like this, when the mission is compiling a database, they can reach out to you when they even send an email.
And there are people.
And Thelma, we should take a minute to use this also to advertise to our competitors that there's a reason for which we say when you travel out of Ghana, register with the Ghana embassy that is out there, so that in times like this, even when they send an email or a text message, they can reach you and you can give your name and your database to them, that I came on holidays and I want to go back. And then they can tell you that you fit into the category of those who have to pay And then if you're able to do that, they're able to...
I was about to make the point that we also have nationals who also went elsewhere for holidays, and now because the borders are closed, they're also... So what's the plan to get those non-essential nationals also back home?
It all goes back to the missions. If you
Famous
engage with the missions and they give us the data, then we can act.
Right. Famous has joined us from Pram Pram. Thank you for calling in. What's your comment or question?
Okay, please. I just want to make this comment to the Honorable Minister. I have realized that about 1 month now, some few months now, the cases of surveillance is more than how do you call it, the one that they go and check. So we have realized that now since the general surveillance cases are on the rise, it means that the government or the people, those people, or the people are trying to lose the cases. Or what I'm trying to say that the cases are being.
Your line is not very clear, but I think the minister has got the import of
he's
your
suggesting that his observation is that the general surveillance cases are more than the surveillance cases. And I'm saying to you that that is not correct. Even as at the last data we have on the 6th of June, general surveillance is 3,900, enhanced surveillance is 5,700. The facts don't support that narrative.
So Famous, there is your answer, and so many more questions and comments coming in regarding the issue of the borders. And because the phone lines are still open, we have a few minutes more to wrap up and get out of here. Honorable Minister, there are concerns for easing restrictions on education, and there are some who have come out to say maybe it's time to reconsider the decision. Does government still stand by its decision to reopen the schools for the selected
I am not
students?
aware. I don't have a brief that says the government has had reason to reconsider the guidelines for the reopening of schools for final year students to go and write their exams, because it is a choice between things. We are either saying that these students should not write their exams, or we are going to reopen for them to go back and write their exams. It's one of two options. In between, there are some schools that managed to do their exams online for some of their students. In fact, there are some universities that said, well, we hear you, thank you, but we've actually administered our examination, and so we will not be reopening for our final year students. But what we are doing is to give permission for the schools to reopen under some safety frameworks for the final year students to go and write their exams, so that they can terminate, their final year education. Well, all the others, you would recall, are still home, doing some sort of distance learning, which we are monitoring to determine its
maybe next week we'll have the opportunity to engage whether distance learning is working, because on a couple of weeks ago you said you would check on that for us. Miguel has joined us from Takoradi. I presume that Miguel would be our final caller for today. Let's hear your question or comment for the minister.
Hello.
Yes, Miguel, please, let's hear you. The minister is hearing you loud and clear.
Okay. My younger brother is in a private school, and it's a day school, so I wanted to find out what is going to happen to those of the day school. Are they going to find an accommodation for them, or?
Okay. Is it a senior high school or a junior high school?
Senior high school, and it's a private school.
Right. Thank you, Miguel.
School, we don't have any accommodation.
Right. Thank you, Miguel. So it's a day school. It's a private day senior high school. What's the plan to accommodate them?
I think the guidelines are quite clear that for boarding schools, we're expecting all the students to be in the boarding house.
But for day schools,
to limit how much travel and exposure there is. For day schools, to the extent that they don't have boarding facilities, it stands to reason that they cannot be accommodated because those facilities don't exist. What it means is that the hygiene protocols, the screening of students and staff, etc., has to be done with a very high level of alertedness to ensure that they are able to go in socially distance, wear their masks, and attend to the work that needs to take place.
Right, so that's your answer right there, Miguel. And because we've run out of time, I had intentions for us to talk about domestic tourism and what the minister said last week about boosting the local tourism industry through encouraging people to visit Ghana and see Ghana more at this time. But the fact remains that the sites are still unprepared. What's the bigger picture here? What's the bigger plan to do something different from what we've been doing, that hasn't seemed to work effectively when it comes to tourism.
So very quickly, we can't shut down forever, and the shutdowns have their own economic risks that they pose to us. So we're having to ease up gradually, but to ease up with preventive frameworks available. The Ghana Tourism Authority, the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Arts, continues to engage the industry players on the guidelines to prepare their various places to receive patrons, and on what patrons have to do to also ensure that they're able to attend to these places without putting themselves at risk. It's in between these two positions that we can encourage a lot more domestic tourism, so that the tourism industry does not collapse totally even at this time. I do know that the president is preparing to give some support to the tourism sector in perhaps the coming week or so, as part of the effort to reignite activity in that sector, and we'll be happy to share the details with you once he announces them.
Alfred is very desperate to ask the Info Minister a question from Kumasi. We'll just give him a brief period to do so. Hello, Alfred. Please go to the point.
Yes, okay. Please, my point is, in the lifting of the religious activities, yeah, it seems that people are making a point that they are not going to the church and those things. But I think it is a matter of they not satisfying the conditions. So I think the minister, and not of us, the president should go, but we are not going. But I don't think that is the thing. There was a condition attached to that. Do this, do this, do this. So if the pastors are not able to satisfy this condition, I think it's better to come out clear rather than to say one or two things. That is it. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Alfred. I think his point was about specifying the conditions under which churches and mosques can operate.
Yeah. And that condition has been specified in detail by the minister responsible for religious affairs, which condition has also been published on the Ministry of Information website and our social media handles. But I like the point he makes, and it is actually in consonance with what the president says. He says that these are the guidelines. For those that are minded to reopen, you have to observe these guidelines. If you are not minded to reopen, you are not compelled to do this. As I did on Sunday, myself and my family stayed at home, and we fellowshipped, via the power of television, because we are not minded to necessarily go in at this point in time. And there are others who feel that way. Then there's nothing wrong with it. And there are those who feel that they want to go in. What he's saying is that you have to observe this preventive etiquette as you're going in.
I'll just allow this one final comment. Nana Kofi is asking, please, Mr. Minister, why can't we use funds from the COVID fund to pay for the quarantine cost? It's not fair to allow citizens to pay.
The COVID fund is not under the instruction of government. It is under the instruction of an independent committee led by Madame Sophia Kufu. It was in a fund set up by law.
So what is it being used for?
Well,
then?
They would have to answer that question. But for government, we can't compel the use of that fund for this purpose.
Honorable Kajopon Kroma, thank you so much for engaging with us once again. The Honorable Minister is also MP for Kwasa Yobi. He's joined us answering your questions. This program is repeated same day, Tuesday at 9 p.m. and also Friday at 9 a.m. We appreciate your company, and as we always say, be out there, be safe and keep safe. We'll see you same time next week.
is Belland Elomtete. I want to find out from the minister that the president.
Reopening for some, but not for all. As the country eases into the new normal, some are still cautious about venturing out. COVID-19 has changed our world in all things: religion, sports, transport, schools, tourism. A new voters register or not? What's on your mind to hashtag Ask the Info Ministry. It's another date, live on Tuesday the 9th of June 2020 at 4 p.m. with Thelma Taki. You can send your comments and questions ahead via text, voice note or video to WhatsApp number 055-744-6429. Catch a repeat same Tuesday at 9 p.m. and on Friday at 9 a.m. It's hashtag Ask the Info Ministry live on Tuesday the 9th of June 2020 right here on GBC News and GTV.
Being focused on Sabina Al-Kira's work and the question of how COVID-19 will affect the multidimensionally poor. But before we get to that, I just want to say something about this series. What's it for? What are we trying to achieve? The purpose of this series is to really showcase the best of Oxford international development and make it accessible to a wider public audience. At the moment, with the challenges created by the current pandemic, international development is perhaps more important than ever. Being able to engage thoughtfully with the new world that we face and the challenges it poses around the world is a major and striking imperative. And so what we're trying to do in this series is convene thinkers who are focused on different themes in international development, different regions of the world, and make their work and the way in which their research connects to the pandemic accessible within and across Oxford to other students and academics, but also the public at large. And we've got presentations during the next 8 weeks that focus on China, India, Latin America, Europe, migration, human rights, politics, economics. There is literally something for everyone. And the series is jointly convened by the Oxford Department of International Development and also the Oxford Society for International Development, a student-led society. And so I'm joined by my fellow co-convener, Harry Crichton-Miller, who's Vice President of that society, and he'll also introduce himself. Go ahead, Harry.
Hi, everybody. So exactly like Alex said, I'm Harry. I'm co-moderating this event alongside the brilliant Alex. I'm the current Vice President of the Oxford Society for International Development, and we're very, very excited to be bringing you this series today. Obviously, in more normal times, we have the privilege of engaging Oxford University students and the public on some of these key issues in a more traditional format, in events, etc. But given the unique challenges this global pandemic poses, it's brilliant that we can do this here today. If you're a student or otherwise interested, just check us out on Facebook or on the website at oxford.org, of course. And yeah, that's about it. Finally, I did want to say a huge thank you both to Alex and to Sabina for giving up their time, putting in all this work to put this together today. But yeah, back to you, Alex.
And generally, seminars and presentations will be on Mondays at 2 o'clock, but there's a bit of variation to that. So check out the wider schedule for the term, and we'll be adding to it on a rolling basis. Most will be in this format, but some will be podcasts, and there'll be a range of resources put out on the series webpage. But without further ado, I'm really pleased to welcome Professor Sabina Al-Kira, a colleague of ours in the Oxford Department of International Development. Sabina is Director of the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, OFI, and throughout her work and her career, she's really done pioneering research on what's called multidimensional poverty, taking the idea of how we measure and understanding poverty beyond just simple measures of GDP to really think about what it is that contributes to human welfare. And amongst the many prizes that OFI has received include the Queen's Anniversary Prize, a real recognition that this is work that is not just abstract academic research, but is contributing to changing lives of some of the poorest around the world. So I can't think of anyone better suited to tell us a little bit about how COVID-19 may affect the global poor. So Sabina, over to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Alex and Harry, and thanks to all of you who are joining online. I hope that you and your families are well in these difficult times. Today, I'm going to focus a bit on looking outside of ourselves to see what the COVID impact might be on people who already struggle with a number of deprivations at the same time. And first of all, try to understand that world of interlocked, interwoven, complex deprivations that people are already navigating, and then how COVID might have affected them, and how we can use some numbers or some learning from friends or some techniques to try to quantify the impact that COVID is having on poverty. Because clearly we would not like this lead to the predicted increases in poverty that we are already hearing about in the press. And so we view COVID and the ensuing recession with great trepidation. But I'll also end on a positive note with some examples of how even in the toughest of times, sometimes a corner is turned. So the starting point today is on non-monetary aspect of people's lives. Those people may be monetary poor, not having enough income, or they may not. But we're looking at people who experience several things going wrong at the same time. Maybe deprivations in education or housing or work or violence or living standards and quality of life. And what we observe when we look at the interlinkages between those deprivations is that they are incredible. So what I'd like to start with is just thinking about 10 indicators that happen to be included in a global multidimensional poverty index I'll cover later. And let's just think about what it would be like to experience those deprivations. They also link to the Sustainable Development Goals that some of you will have studied. So the database looks at each person within their household and at the deprivations they and household members are considering at the same time. Is anybody in your household undernourished? Is the child, very sadly, died in the last 5 years? Does nobody in the household have enough 6 years of schooling? Is there a child out of school up to the age at which they complete class 8? Do you lack clean cooking fuel, adequate sanitation, safe drinking water, electricity, good quality housing, and more than one of a few small assets? So people who lack these may also lack other deprivations that are of great interest, like they may have precarious, informal, or unsafe jobs. They may be subject to violence. But this is the starting point that I'm going to talk about today. And thinking now about people in context of their households and the different things they carry at the same time. And so a first observation is that the interlinkages across deprivations are incredible. So the global MPI